Okay, so Monday's here. We missed last week's live stream, but you already know we're back this week with all the spring games happening. We couldn't skip another week of not doing a live stream. I have got a full house here with me tonight. I've got Nino from Nino's Corners, Chris with the Horns Down podcast, Jance from Jance Sports, and JP that runs the Indy Sooner YouTube channel. Guys, I guess the order we'll go in is Nino, Chris, Jance, and Indy, because that's the order of the pictures. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let them know where they can find you, because we have got a ton to get into.
What's up, folks, man? I'm Nick Battle, a.k.a. Nino's Corner. Just hit up Nino's Corner on every platform, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Hey, I'm there.
Hey, Chris with a K, Horns Down Podcast. You know where we be at. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to find us. We're on YouTube as well. So follow me, Chris with a K. You saw it on the screen. We in here. We about to get into this Texas business, this Texas ass. So, keep it going. Jance, what's up, man?
Man, listen, y'all can check me out, Jan Sports on YouTube. Do plenty of college football content. Also got draft coverage on the way. You catch me on Twitter at Jan716, Instagram at Jan Sports. I'm ready to talk about some college ball.
Man, I was muted. I didn't realize that. I'm JP. You can find me on Twitter at Indy Sooner. You can also find my YouTube channel, Indy Sooner, on YouTube. Do the JP and Trav show Wednesday nights with my buddy Travis Davidson. We'll be going on with our boy Ty. I got a big surprise for him Wednesday nights. We're gonna see what happens.
Man, I'm so excited about that. I've been trying to guess who it could be, but I'm just, at this point, I just want to be surprised when I log in that night. That's going to be a ton of fun. Well, guys, we've got a lot of spring ball to get into. There was a lot of good football for us to talk about. There's a lot of not so good football for us to talk about. But we will start in Austin, okay? Because Texas had their spring game. OU had their spring game. You already know we had the Red River rivalry in here. That's why I have everybody in here, because there was a lot of good for us to take from either spring game, some things to work on. But Nino, I want to start with you, man. Quinn, I mean, he's showing flashes of why he was who he is. He's got a real natural spin on the ball. Progression still needs to be made, obviously, but I want to hear from you. Where are you sitting after that spring game that you saw?
Man, honestly, when it comes to, Quinn, right now it's still pretty even. But Hudson kind of has like the happy feet, right? So he still doesn't look as comfortable, like as he should for a guy who's been at a school, I think, for 3 years. Quinn has all the arm talent. He's, he'll make a play that's amazing, but folks, he still is 18 years old, so he threw like a pick out to Cook, which wasn't like a good play, but he had 2 touchdowns, man. Has a great deep ball. I mean, he just has excellent touch, man. Excellent touch.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed was on some of the deep balls, even the ones that weren't complete, just the way he threw it, you were like, okay, if you are a quarterback coach and you see these mechanics, you're excited. And that's really all we can ask for where he is. Chris, I want to hear from you. I know we're going to get your Sooner take on this, but did you get to watch the Texas spring game?
Yeah, I didn't watch it live, but I watched the highlights. I watched a lot of the plays that were being made or whatever. I mean, it was to be expected. I mean, basically my assumption, I remember watching it with my uncle. We were talking about it. We were on the phone this past Sunday. I mean, talent-wise, Hudson Card shouldn't even be on the field with Mullet Boy. But when you want to just talk about like who can run that offense better, I disagree with you there. I don't necessarily know if it's happy feet or if he's just actually more mobile. Because the whole thing is that working behind that offensive line still is still a question mark for you guys. Now, I'm not going to go off on you. I might say that for a little bit later. We got our own little rendezvous. But no, I would say that, I left there thinking that, hey, Texas fans are going to be really excited about this. They're going to hype the hell out of Whittington, being healthy and looking like he's going to step into that number 3 role and probably be able to assume more of a dominant role in the offense too. He looked pretty good out there. He actually looked kind of fast. But when you look at Nayor looked good. Xavier Worthy, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't really tell because a lot of people are going to be, we sat back there and I asked Mom, I said, how would you attack this Texas team? He said, well, I mean, obviously, that they want to run the ball, but you can't just sit back and actually try to load the box this time because Worthy will get loose and then Nayor is respectable back there. And then when a Jai Hall, if he has his head on, if he has his head on straight, then that just adds more talent and more depth to that. But you still need guys like Washington and Mucci and Michi, whoever these guys are that you guys been talking about. You still need them to step up.
Hey man, don't basically like that.
Basically, what I'm saying is that you see the talent and you see what can be, but that offensive line is still a question mark. And I will say this right here: I'm still not sold on this whole tight end look that you guys are trying to go to. Because I think for me, Billingsby was not involved in that spring game all that much. And I'm interested to see how he's going to be used. And I still didn't see that Jatavian Sanders dude or whoever the hell he was. And then defensively, you guys still look pretty much the same. Your best DB out there is Watts. And I think Watts is going to have a hell of a year for Texas. I really do. I think he's going to be a lockdown corner. But at the same time, you can't put everything on him.
Chris, I gotta say something. So if you say that you watched the spring game, you didn't see my boy JT.
Billingsby catch one ball. I saw him catch one ball. I watched the highlights.
That's because he's probably not going to be the best tight end on that team. That's going to be Sanders. And Sanders had a pretty good spring, man. He had a pretty good spring game. So if you said that you watched the spring game, but you didn't see Sanders doing his thing, you didn't watch the spring game.
I saw Sanders do his thing. I saw Sanders fumble on the 1 yard line as well. So,
yeah, he got a script from him. That's a rookie mistake. It is what it is. That's why it's a spring game. Because you can make those mistakes in the spring. That's when you say, hey, yo, JT, cover that up when you get to the end zone next time. Two hands. Right? So that's what it's about. This is spring game. But he had a hell of a game. Talking about Sanders, he had a great game. I was one of the, the folks that was more bullish on him, basically saying that I would think that he would want to play defense more, right? Because, we needed somebody on the edge last year. He'd have probably been a good fit. But you guys know when it comes to playing defense, you got to want to play defense, right? You got to go want to hunt somebody. You got to want to go hit somebody. You got to want to rush the passes. That's things that you have to want to do. But he wanted to play tight end. Jeff Banks has him at the tight end position. And he looked damn good at tight end during the spring game. And I think him coupled, with Gunnar Helm, also with Billingsley, that's going to be a good three-headed monster there at Texas.
Yeah, Jance, before you go, I'll say this. I was interning at Dave Campbell's Texas football, and I got to watch Jatavian Sanders on multiple different occasions. And in fact, Nino, you'll know the plays being a Texas fan. I was at every game his senior year where he had those one-handed catches, and he had like 3 or 4 that year, all in the same spot in the end zone, all of which double-teamed, and he would just – it was cold. That kid, I remember walking next to him, and he looked different. And Ryan was a team loaded with D1 prospects. Loaded. But he looked different, and I had no idea what he would play. He was green on both sides, but so supremely athletic. Jance, I want to hear from you now. What was your takeaways from the Texas game?
Man, it was a fun game to watch, man. It was definitely a fun game to watch. Y'all running back room is it's a beast, man. Bijan Robinson, obviously, he didn't play in the spring game, but he's going to be a huge contributor. Keelan Robinson, former Alabama running back, I think he definitely showed the elusiveness, the agility, like what I saw from him. Roshan Johnson was also a pretty nice asset. I did see Jatavian Sanders make some plays. He made a spectacular catch. Again, he fumbled at the 1 yard line, but like you said earlier, it's a rookie mistake. Obviously he's a 5-star kid. You can see the size and you can see the athleticism on him and just the upside that the type of player has. Jaleel Billingsley obviously was a huge contributor to Alabama before, he was in Nick Saban's doghouse. So hopefully, again, he can get it right, because if he can get it right, he's one of the best tight ends, I think, in the country. Definitely a mismatch problem that you can line him up. More of a hybrid receiver type. He's not an inline guy like Jatavian Sanders, but Jaleel Billingsley obviously fits the profile there. Quinn Ewers, he made some mistakes. He made some throws that obviously he's going to look at the tape and he's going to want to look back for. But I think it's a good thing that he made those mistakes, because you can kind of see where he needs to kind of work on, whether it's mechanics, whether if it's, presence in the pocket. I know the defense, you couldn't sack it. Couldn't sack him, but obviously you can try to learn from those mistakes and try to correct those mistakes, because Alabama, that's gonna be a game that he's definitely gonna have to get focused if he does become the starter. I'm assuming that he is going to be the starting quarterback, but you did see some of the arm talent. I mean, the dude made some throws, man, that you can clearly see. Okay, this was the reason why he was the number one quarterback in the nation. But I think probably the biggest question mark that I probably have for you guys is the defense. I think we still need to see a little bit more from the defense. Obviously you guys got some players like Overton. You got Anthony Cook still there. Keandre Coburn, I think is your best defensive player. But I think things are starting to trend upwards, and I think that's the most positive part about this. Is that I think you guys look pretty good right now. I think you guys are on the right track. But obviously right now we're on the road to Alabama. That's going to be a game.
Indy, what were you thinking? What were you thinking about that?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to really watch it in full. I saw some clips, some highlights. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is Quinn Ewers. He's talented, and we all know that. He's young, just like you guys have all said. And so it'll be something to see if he can continue to develop. My biggest question mark before even watching the spring game was the O-line. Obviously, you guys brought in a ton of freshmen, but again, they're freshmen, and a decent chunk of them aren't even there yet. So going into this year, at least, I don't think that's a viable option to turn to. You guys have three really good receivers in Whittington, Mayor, and Worthy. And obviously, a guy who I thought he was the best running back in the nation last year, and I said that as much, in Bijan Robinson, and obviously I think will be again this year and should be a first-round pick. But again, you guys know the battles are won in the trenches. So that's my biggest, thing for you guys is, are you guys going to be able to have a good O-line? And then, like Jan said, your defense. Other than that, as much as obviously I'm an OU fan and I don't like Texas, I give Texas crap. I'm not Chris be throwing bombs. I'll be reasonable, but that's how I feel, and I want y'all to be good. I do want it to be competitive and whatnot, and hopefully you guys can figure it out.
Yeah. Hey, so Nico, one of the
go ahead. I was just going to jump in. I was going to say, no, I'm not denying the talent that you guys have. You guys got some talent out there, but as many question marks as you guys try to put on us as far as losing Lincoln and Caleb and all the rest of that stuff, and we'll get to ours in a second, but you guys have just as many questions. And, we lost Caleb, Mario, Hazelwood, and we lost, obviously some of our better defensive players or whatnot, but it's kind of like we upgraded with coaching. But again, we'll get to that. But the whole thing about it is that there's still a lot of question marks on that team because you guys are coming off a 5-7 season. Yeah. So we just have to respect the fact that, hey, look, we understand that you guys are going to be better. Sark's a good coach, okay? I'm not going to sit here and say he's a terrible coach. He never won over not more than 9 games this season, but he's still a good coach. Yeah. But my whole thing is that can he truly develop this team into what it should be? And the whole thing is that you got to ask yourself, I feel like as a Texas fan, can I go through another season of seeing Sark yo-yo these quarterbacks? Can I see him go through another year of playing around with PK and letting him go out there and just play whoever he wants to play? Because the biggest thing for me is seeing that defensive line be nasty, seeing the linebackers, seeing Overshawn get some help, and then also seeing that secondary be better as well, which, like I said, you guys went out there and probably got one of the most underrated and one of the biggest steals in the transfer portal, which is Watts. Watts is going to be nasty for you guys because he's coming from that.
Not a transfer, but in the recruiting class, Terrence Brooks is going to be a nasty player.
Yeah, he's just really young. He's just really green. What's he, 17 years old? Yeah, he's green. But
and Tom, my last point before I let you go is just simply I think Quinn Ewers, for the most part, I can't really judge him off that game. Yeah, he missed some passes, he missed some throws, but I mean, I can't sit here and I'd be a hypocrite if I was going to sit here and try to down the kid, because at the end of the day, when Rattler was going through some of his spells, especially in his first year, one of the things I have to remind myself is that, man, he hasn't played college football. He hasn't played real legitimate football in like 2 years. Right. So that's something that you kind of have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Do I think that I feel like Texas and Clemson have the same situation where you're going in there with a Hudson Card and a DJ Ugalele, but in the back of your mind that, hey, Caleb Klubnik and Quinn Ewers are going to be the starters by game 3, game 4, game 5. Somewhere down the line, they will be the starter and they won't be splitting time. So I just feel like, especially for Sark, because in my opinion, the best option that you guys had was to sit Quinn for 1 year and keep Casey, but that didn't happen. So now I just feel like, if he goes to another year of yo-yoing quarterbacks, I mean,
But Chris, he didn't yo-yo the quarterbacks last year. Card started last year for 1 game. He comes in, does really well against ULL. And he goes to Arkansas, kind of lays to bed. Sark says, Casey, this is your team. And it was his team for the rest of the season. So I don't call it a yo-yo. Yeah. He thought he had the guy. But, being a good leader is knowing once you make mistakes, you got to correct them. And I think he made the right decision by putting Casey in. It's just that Casey got hurt, against you guys. And he really wasn't the same, basically since that game. But getting back to the Quinn versus Card, I think anybody with a pulse knows that Quinn's probably going to win this. You don't go out and go get a kid like that, go out and quote unquote spend the money to get a kid like that to come in here to have him sit, right? He has the arm talent. I think anybody who watched the spring game saw that Quinn's arm talent is it's just better than Card's, right? He makes really good throws. One thing that he also did that Card didn't do last year, when a play wasn't there, hey, either throw it to the ground at somebody's feet or throw it out of bounds. Hey, you live for another play, right? And he did that pretty well. So if we have him starting, I think our talent on the edges is a lot better than it was last year. Just, Jay Wood couldn't stay healthy. Josh Moore was in and out because of, his problems. So It was basically Xavier Worthy and Bijan and Roshan. No real tight ends. Right. So we didn't have any threat to catch the ball, if it wasn't Worthy. So now that you got Worthy and you got Nair looked really good. Quinn threw a hell of a pass to him, 60 yards from like a dime. You got Jay Witt. And if we can get Hall in here healthy, Marcus Washington, with him kind of sliding to that 4th or 5th receiver and not counting on him to be your second best receiver in the team, I think that helps the team out a lot more. Right. So if you have a Worthy, you have a Nair's going to play the boundary. Worthy can play the field. But if you bring in a guy like Hall, you can have Hall play also on the field. You can move your best chess piece around, which is Worthy, to go to the slot, go boundary, go field. But then you got Jay Wood also, who's a hell of a slot guy as well. And then you throw in Sanders, you throw in like a Billingsley. I'm telling you, that tight end position is going to be so much more short up this year to where they're going to be a threat to catch the ball. Last year, nobody was scared of Cade Brewer. It just was what it was. Nobody was scared of him catching the ball. So now if you got a monster like Sanders, who's, what is he, 6'5", 255, 260, who runs a pretty decent speed on the 40, but has great hands, look, that's going to open up this offense. I'm just excited just to see what's going to happen in the season.
Yeah, so one of the things I have, man, as we kind of all went around, there were 2 overarching points that I think everybody here was interested in. And Nino, I'd really like to hear kind of your take on that. And that's 1, offensive line, and 2, defense, right? That was kind of all of our concerns for Texas. So in your opinion, where do you stand on the offensive line? What's the outlook there? And then defensively, what are you feeling about the defense this year?
Man, so the O-line, you got to open your eyes up for that one, right? We had a hell of a class, probably like the best O-line class this year.
Definitely this year. Definitely.
Yeah. But, let's be honest. Once the season starts, we're going to have to expect 2 or maybe 3 of those guys to come in here ready to play. And right, so I'm looking at the left tackle position, probably like a Kelvin Banks Jr. or a NATO. One of those two are going to have to play like left tackle. I'm looking at Campbell is probably going to have to I would say like the right guard position. I would not want to put 2 freshmen on the left side right next to each other, but one of those guys is going to have to start at left tackle. You have Junior playing your left guard, Jake Majors playing the center, probably Campbell playing the right guard, and Christian Jones moving from left tackle to right tackle. He looked a lot more smoother, just in that, job there. So, I think the line, as long as these guys can be serviceable, I think we'll have a good season. I think we're going to be able to put up points if these guys are serviceable. We had serviceable guys at the top of the year last year, and as soon as like Okafor went out, Topi went out as well, we had to put in guys that just weren't ready to play. And we're talking about these aren't guys like Kelvin Banks Jr. and like a DJ Campbell who are highly sought after 5-star guys. We're putting in guys who just weren't ready. These are guys that need to be in the program for 2, maybe 3 years to get some seasoning first before they get out there and get snaps, right? And we just didn't have the luxury of that last year. I think this year we got a guy like Hayden Connor who's going to, fight for some time as well. I think he's a beast. Cole Hudson is the only freshman who was able to get on campus early. He's looking really good as well. But, I always tell my Texas peeps, I know it gets exciting during this whole season when it comes to getting the recruits in, and we got a hell of a line class. We can't field no Fab 5 offensive line class. If we do that, hey man, 4 and 8. If we do a Fab 5, no, we can't do that. Texas, at the most, man, we got to have at the most 2 guys that are freshmen starting on that line. The last time we had 2 freshmen starting the line, we went 5-7, man, and that's when we had Patrick Vahey and Connor Williamson, and both of them were actually freshman All-Americans. So, even having them play up to decent standards here on campus, having 2 guys who don't know the college system in there full time, it's not a good thing for us.
So here's the thing. I'm a bit nervous about Banks.
Why?
Because there's been some things at a lot of those camps and stuff like that. And I know he's playing the right side.
Yeah, he played the right side. So
I get that.
Yeah, it's a lot different. Chris,
I get that, but as a 5-star, it's not a lot to ask him to just switch sides right there.
Yeah, but to switch sides there, Chris, and this guy's thinking he's going to play left tackle throughout the whole camp. And the day of camp, they say you're going to move to right tackle. Look, feet placement, getting your feet right, spacing, all that's different from the left to the right side. So yes, it's going to be difficult. It's a learning curve. Give them 3 weeks on that, or give them 4 or 5 practices on that, and then go and then say go out and handle business. Things look a lot different. And if you read the reports, they did say that over the time of that camp, he looked a lot more smoother at right tackle as the camp went on, because he was playing a position that he's not used to playing.
Yeah, but he was getting used and abused a bit. I give you the benefit of the doubt. He's just going to be a true freshman. But I will say this right here. One thing that I definitely will say, Jance brought the point up, and Jance, you're my boy, but you know what I have to do. At least once or twice during the session, I have to disagree with you. Their running back room is not deep. Why do I say that? There's a crap ton of talent in that running back room.
I thought it was nice. It's okay.
We all know who's going to get all the carries. We're not going to see Roshan Robinson. We're not going to see Keelan Johnson, whatever the name is. We're not going to see them. We're not going to see your boy Blue. We're not going to see any of them.
Well, you know what? We don't have to count on the freshman to come because we got Bijan Robinson. We got a Roshan Johnson.
Yeah.
Roshan Johnson single-handedly won us the Kansas State game last year. And Casey was beat up, couldn't throw the ball. They said Wildcat Roshan. They knew it was coming and they couldn't stop him. Roshan's a great back. I mean, he's a I shouldn't say great, sir. He's a very, very good back. Roshan's going to be playing on Sundays. I think we all.
Nobody's saying that. Saying that. He reminds me a lot of that Wayne Gallman. I forgot what his name is, but
Gallman.
Yeah. He reminds me of he's that type of back. But my whole thing is, are we actually going to see them, or are we going to have to wait to see them whenever Bijan gets injured?
I think it's going to be, in my opinion, Roshan's going to play a lot this year. Is he going to get the carries Bijan? No, because if you go back and study Sark likes to get his playmakers. He likes to keep them on the field. So Bijan's going to play a lot, just like Najee Harris played a lot, right? We all understand Najee played a lot. Najee barely got spelled, right? Right, Ty? Also, with the wide receivers, Sark likes to hone in and use 4 guys, right? And those 4 guys are going to be the guys that he's going to use the whole season. Looking at Tom Herman from his tenure here, we had 17 wide receivers on campus. All 17 of them got a lot of rep, which was crazy. So there was no continuity between the quarterbacks and like the wideouts. Sark finds his guys. He finds his skill position players, and he uses those guys to focus on getting that continuity between the quarterback and those guys.
Yeah, I think if y'all can find a way to keep Worthy in the slot, that's where Sark is going to be at his happiest.
Just move him around. He's going to be nasty.
I think that was a big reason to bring in Hall. Go ahead, JP.
I was gonna point out this comment that's up here. My question would be, do they have, not them, would Sark have until their junior year? If there's back-to-back by their junior year, the seasons don't go the way, because let's just be real, let's be honest. Historically, what's happened in Texas since Mac Brown has left, coaches don't get a lot of time. The expectations are sky high. Will it matter? That's my question.
I think he will. And I say that because, if you go back and look at some of, look, I love Charlie Strong. I think everybody loved Charlie Strong. He was a great guy. He just wasn't the right guy for this team, and he was Texas' 4th or 5th option that year. Okay. Tom Herman, I had high hopes for Tom Herman, but hearing some of the reports that came out of, campus on things that he would do to the players and stuff, that didn't jive right. And I think, even the brass got tired of him. I think Steve Sarkisian, what we're seeing with him is he is building this team right. He's building it from the lines up, right? To get 7 guys on the offensive line, to get a hell of a defensive line haul as well. He understands what it's going to take to play in the SEC in the next couple of years. You go back and look at Tom Herman's classes. Failure to get the Brockemeyer twins was just crazy, right? They should not be at Alabama. They should be at Texas. Over his tenure, and Ty, you noticed that, I did like a video about this. Over a 5-year span between Tom Herman and the last year of Charlie Strong, 18 offensive linemen committed to Texas. Horrible. So it was the least amount of offensive linemen committed to a university in the Big 12 over that time frame, tied with Kansas. Okay, 18. And out of those 18, 6 of them left the program within a year. So if you're a head coach and you're building a team and you only have 12 scholarship offensive linemen that have committed to you over a 5-year span, you're not going to make it. You're not going to do it. So they didn't utilize the transfer portal as much either then. I think now with the opportunity to get the transfer portal in, utilize getting some players in, and I think Texas should be a big player with, some guys at tackle and guard as well this year and also next year. You can build something really quick. Look at Michigan State and what they did last year. Bring in some decent offensive linemen that give your young freshmen an opportunity to maybe sit for your red shirt, get some seasoning, get right in the program, get coached by, Flood, and have those guys ready to come in after maybe like a year or two.
Yeah, I completely agree. Gents, you brought up the defense. What's your biggest question for Texas on the defense?
I want to see how they do a little bit in the trenches. That's what I kind of want to see. I know that Keandre Coburn is solid there. He can be the anchor there on the defensive line. But then I kind of look at some other guys, Alfred Collins, kind of what his development, how he can kind of be right there. I want to see how strong they can get, see if they can get a little bit stronger there in the trenches. I also look at their secondary a little bit again. You look at a notable name like Anthony Cook, who I think last year you guys played him in the slot. Am I right about that, Nino?
Yeah. He was in the slot last year.
Okay. So did they place him like in a different position? Because I think they put him at safety.
Yeah. Yes, he's at safety this year.
Okay.
He's at boundary safety.
Okay, so yeah, I want to see how they, how well they can do defensively, because I think offensively they're going to be a juggernaut. I think this could be a top 5 offense, regardless if whether if it's the rushing attack being that much involved or not. We all know Bijan Robinson's going to be a beast. We all know that Xavier Worthy, if he can stay healthy, is going to be one of the more dynamic, electrifying receivers in the country. I think just with guys like Nayers, and I think another player like Jordan Whittington, if he can stay healthy, more of that Deebo Samuel type of player. It's just they need to rely on the offensive line to getting that improvement, and I think the defense needs to take that next step. Not saying that they need to be like top 10 or top 5 in the nation, but if they can just take that next step, maybe being a top 30, maybe top 25 defense, Texas is going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through some comments real quick, and then I have one question for you, Nino, before we move on to Oklahoma's spring game. But I did want to talk about some of these. So Matt says that the Texas O-line will not play just to play. They'll play when they're ready, 2 or 5 stars. Hey, I hear you, man, but we've seen before 5 stars can take time. Bama got multiple 5 stars last year, and they needed time to adjust. The offensive line position is such a tough one to come in and play.
Brockermeyer is still not going to be ready.
Still not ready. He's third string, right, Ty? Any third string?
His injury was probably more severe than a lot of people realized, and it's making it very difficult for him to come back into the fray because he's so far behind in terms of the physical aspect that it's just super unfortunate, because everything I've heard is they're like, hey, when he's got the ability, it's just this injury has kind of really set him back. Super unfortunate. The other comment I'll talk about is Jason says A&M played with several freshman O-line and beat Bama. No excuses for Texas. Josh Henson was the offensive line coach there, and I'm not saying anything negative against Kyle Flood, but Josh Henson is a hell of an offensive line coach. Kyle Flood is as well, not taking anything away from him there. I'm just saying no 2 situations are created equal. A&M had a bit of a unique situation there, what happened in the Alabama A&M game. But here's my question for you, Nino, before we move on to the Oklahoma spring game. We talk about transfer portal. We talk about involvement in the transfer portal. There's a linebacker in the portal right now who, if I was the Texas Longhorns, I would be breaking down doors to try and get. And that's Eric Gentry, the linebacker transferring from Arizona State. True freshman, recorded 29 solo tackles, if I'm not mistaken, 45 tackles on the year, 1 sack. But he's 6'6". You don't teach 6'6" with the ability to play inside or outside. What's the situation for y'all's transfer portal as far as the linebacker is concerned? I know Mathis is still very much well in play, but just kind of interested in hearing your thoughts there.
Man, we could definitely use some help on the defensive side of the ball from the portal, right? So I actually like our defensive line. So we got Byron Murphy. Guys, please tuck that name away. Byron Murphy might be the best defensive lineman that we have in this team. Coburn's probably going to start because he is a senior, and he's going out, like this is last year. But Murphy is going to be a guy who's going to, I think he's going to get the line, like share of those snaps. Of course, Alfred Collins, Sweat, getting a O'Shawn Mathis, if that happens, that'd be perfect to come off the edge. You're getting a guy who was an all Big 12 performer 2 years ago and a second team guy last year. But at the linebacker position, we all know we got Overshawn. But the guy who I'm really intrigued about is Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford has been a guy who I think he had more tackles for losses than any of the linebackers from the team last year. And I think he was like 4th or 5th in snaps when it came to actual linebackers last year. Jalen Ford's going to be a good guy. Very, very instinctive guy. He's going to play very well for us. My thing about Overshawn is this is his 4th year. And, there have been a lot of reports that he has kind of been splitting time, with the ones. And if you're a guy who's in your 4th year, and is that guy, you ain't splitting time with anybody. Right. This is your team. So getting somebody else in the transfer portal at the linebacker position, I think is a must. Not only just to have them start, but to be able to have a guy like David Benda or the other Brockermeyer or like a Jet Bush, those guys, you can kind of move some of those guys to special team, have your linebackers play more special team, which is what you want, right? At the DB side of the house, Chris already said it. Watts is going to be, I think, a really good corner for us. Jameson is still playing there as well. Anthony Cook moving to safety was good. Barron. Barron is our slot guy who's a beast. I think honestly he was the best cornerback that we had last year. And at the free safety position, who's playing free? It's Crawford. So Crawford is going to be a guy. He had a lot of hits, last year and also in the spring game as well. So when it comes to just the defense as a whole, we got to get more solid. We got to get some kind of continuity. They got to play better. If our defense played maybe, from the 110 position that they were last year, if they played to, I don't know, maybe level 95, Texas will probably have 8 wins this year, hopefully they can get everything together and hey, we'll see.
Nick, are you done?
I'm done. What's up?
Okay, because you lost me when you started talking about Coburn. I saw JP got up and was like, I'm not listening to this trash.
Oh, I told you. I said Byron Murphy is – I think Byron Murphy –
You mentioned Coburn's name in both everybody was just like instantly, no, I'm shutting down. I almost left the chat after that. I'm not listening to that ass. You're not coming out there with Coburn who can't run and chase anybody down. He has
Chris, did you hear what I said?
For him to catch
Chris, didn't you just hear what I said?
He has short arms.
Chris, didn't you just hear what I said? I said Coburn's going to play because he's a senior, but the guys who get the line share of playing defensive lineman is a guy named Byron Murphy, who's probably our best defensive lineman. And you guys going to see.
You think he's better than Alfred Collins?
Murphy has more motor than Collins. He does. Sure. He has more motor than Collins. And Murphy is a dog, man. Some guys are dogs, and some guys have to be taught how to be a dog. Byron Murphy is a dog. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know what to call Alfred. I mean, not Alfred Collins, but what's his name? Coburn. Alfred Collins, his only problem is he's just really inconsistent. I just think, I mean, like you said, I don't know if it's necessarily he's not a dog. I think he cares about it, but his motor's not there all the time. But the biggest thing is, I know. I listened to Orange Bloods a while ago, and I know they were saying that Overshawn early in camp, Overshawn, it wasn't that he was splitting reps. It was that they were trying to figure out who's going to be that 1-2 punch with him. Who's that guy that he's most consistent with? Who's can play consistent on the other side of him, because he's outside linebacker, right?
Yeah. So
they were looking at you guys. They were talking about middle linebackers, and I was like, there's a bunch of guys that they named.
But there have been reports that it's been Overshawn and Jalen Ford. There have been reports of Ford and Benda together. There have been reports of Overshawn and Benda together. So it's something has to give. Overshawn's going to start. I think we all know that. But it's just who's going to line up next to him.
Yeah.
If I had to put money on it, I would say Jalen Ford. I think Jalen Ford's a monster. He's one of those guys that's going to be really good. And I think having Gary Patterson there, Gary Patterson has been a guy who knows how to use a guy like Jalen Ford.
Yeah, I mean, your future defensive coordinator. If you got to take another job, I mean, that's pretty much what's going on. You put a lot of pressure on PK. But I'll say just to wrap a bow on this, okay? Now, when Watts was out there, I didn't see a lot of passes getting thrown over his head for touchdowns or just missed passes by Quinn Ewers. But on the other side and kind of on that back end, I was like, "Ooh, Nick, ooh, Steven, y'all may need to hit the portal because y'all ain't looking too hot on that other side."
You know what's funny though, Chris, is we got a running joke on this, but I think Watts is going to be good. Jameson always shows flashes. Right, Jameson has to catch against West Virginia, where he gets the one-handed interception. I think the fans go crazy over that. But he gets beat a lot. I mean, he just gets beat a lot. He's very inconsistent. So we're going to see exactly who's going to line up outside of Watts. I think Jameson is going to be the guy to kind of start off, because he is the fifth-year senior. He's been lighting up in practice, but, practice and game time are two different things, right? There's a lot of people who do really good in practice, but once the lights come on, it's a whole different story. So, Chris, I agree with you on that. Is finding the guy opposite of Ryan Watts, finding that guy is going to be make or break for Texas to see how this actual pass defense is going to hold up. I like Barron. Jade Barron is a really, really good cornerback. He was our highest ranked cornerback last year, but he's going to play nickel, and he's really suited really well for that. But there have been instances where, he did play, on the outside as well. Him and Watts playing, just on the outside, and having a Crawford and a Hill at your safety. So, it's going to be an interesting chess match here. But if it were up to me, it would be Watts on one side, look in the portal for somebody to go opposite Watts, put Barron there at the nickel, keep Crawford at the free safety, and to keep Cook at the boundary safety.
So before we hop into OU, there's a question here that I'd like to answer from the chat. It's from Chris Berry. Chris asks, OU has worse classes than A&M and Texas, but is usually better. Why is that? Part of that, Chris, goes into something, I don't know if you were here, but Nino, he has got a phenomenal video. I reference it ad nauseum, where he breaks down the offensive line recruiting for the Texas Longhorns and how it has been the very definition of inadequate for quite some time. And so, yes, you're not wrong. Typically, OU might be behind Texas A&M or Texas in recruiting. But one thing I talk about at length is, does your recruiting class make sense, or do you just have a bunch of stars in it? And Texas always has a great class. Nobody will disagree with you. And that's why if you ever say this to like a Nino will say, yeah, you're right. But the cohesion of the class just wasn't there. Whereas OU, when you look at their classes, you're like, okay, there's 3 linemen. They got 4 linemen last year. There's 2 wide receivers. They got 3 last year. There's 2 running backs. There's a core. You can start to see the building of a football team there. Texas recruited almost like a chicken without their head, right? Like it was just like, where does this land? And that's who we're going to take. Now, coaching, the consistency of coaching is also a very real answer here, but there is absolutely something to cohesion in your recruiting classes, and that's why some of the Alabama classes have been so successful, is because you can build a football team off of them. So that's kind of my answer for that. If y'all want to add in, absolutely do so. But with that,
the coach, I mean, you got to go to coaching. I mean, one of the biggest problems for me with Texas, you know what, Nick, I'll do you justice on this one. Let's not even jump in on the whole boosters and all the rest of that stuff. That's an ancient argument. We understand, the real people in the room, we understand what's going on behind the scenes. But what I will say is this, is that coaching. Texas has always, just like their recruiting classes, they go after the big splash. They haven't landed a big splash. You go from one of the hottest coaches with Charlie Strong. Then you go to Tom Herman, who was the offensive coordinator at the time.
Charlie was not a big splash. Charlie was Texas' 4th or 5th option. Wasn't a big splash, Chris.
I mean, y'all, yeah.
Next, he wasn't a big splash.
Tom Herman wasn't a big splash either. Y'all made it out to be, and see what happened with him.
He had the same record as Sumlin did over his first 4 years. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, coaching, don't get me wrong, coaching absolutely has something to do with this, but there is a level of cohesion in these recruiting classes that makes your job a bit easier once you get to the development portion.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there was another spring game this weekend that is one of the coolest things I've seen in college football, genuinely. I don't care where you fall on the fandom. If you love college football, you loved to see the Oklahoma Sooners faithful pack the Palace this weekend. Look, we get it. It's a spring game. But that passion is infectious, right? Like that excitement breeds more excitement. For myself, who's an Alabama fan, I'm more excited for college football having seen that. So, Chris, I want to start with you here. What are your takeaways from Oklahoma's spring game?
Boys, I would say, hey, this team has a chance to be damn good. They have a chance to be damn good. Not gonna go playoff talk, not even gonna go there. But I will say this right here, they're not missing a beat. And especially with this offense and everything, you can look at it, you can truly say Dylan Gabriel, with the command that he has over that offense and what he's doing out there, Dylan Gabriel is by far he would be at a better point than what we would be with Caleb at this point, Spencer at this point. Okay, and I know those are hot takes, but I'm just saying his command of the offense, decision making, being quick-witted with the ball, knowing kind of where he wants to go ahead of time, knowing what's going to be open. Granted, they kept it really vanilla out there, but I will say I left that game just really impressed. It's hard to really gauge because he's splitting everybody up. So you're not having ones with ones, you're having ones with twos, one with threes, different things like that. But you're looking, you're saying, man, there's consistency out there. There's a toughness. There's an edge to this team now. And I think that, you saw the 75,000 fans that were there and all the ones that were watching on Student Sports and everywhere else. I think what that message sent to college football is that OU's not going anywhere. And then also I think the message that it sent was like, hey, this is what happens. This is how you respond whenever disaster hits, right? So with Lincoln leaving, Caleb leaving, all the rest of the stuff, people counting this team out, I'm telling you, offensively, they look they look good. There's still some consistency. Wide receiver room, there's going to be, obviously Mims and Weiss, I think they're going to have big years, but you got to find that third guy, whether it's Farouk, whether that's Stoops, whether that's Gibson, whether that's, that is somebody else going to step up. But I really like what I see from the run game, from all of that. Defensively, I think you're going to be nasty up front. Your front seven is going to be really, really good. And I think the linebackers are going to be stronger this year, which is going to help shore up a lot of things. But I would say if you go back and watch that game and you go back and look, you can't help but be excited about this secondary. There are some guys back there. The funny thing about it is that people talk about Eaton. Now you're seeing Kendall Dennis. You're hearing his name pop up a lot. But a lot of people forget Joshua Eaton was a high 4-star that a lot of people wanted. Kendall Dennis was a 4-star that a bunch of people came in on late that people wanted as well. This team is going to be really good this year. And I'll go back and say it again. People are saying, there's doubters like Nick and Steven and guys like that. They like Gabriel, but they don't believe in Gabriel.
Chris,
but my whole thing is that if he stays healthy this year, you saw the two quarterbacks that made the Big 12 championship game. There's no doubt in my mind that if this defense can hold up and do what it needs to do and really buy in even more and learn that system as complex as it was, and Ty, we gotta have a conversation about that because that defense was just some of the things that they were doing out there. I was like, man, this is literally what JD was talking about. But I'm telling you,
if I could, there one of the touchdowns I think kind of shows right now, like one of the only downsides with having a defense that complex, right, is because you're going to make mistakes, and that's only natural.
Mistakes, yeah.
But on the Mims touchdown, that defensive call, like someone had to have made a mistake because that made absolutely no sense. You had a single high safety with Weiss on the boundary. He's running a fade. The corner breaks off the fade to an underneath. The single high safety rotates to the fade, and the middle of the field, you could have parked 18 Ferraris in the middle of the field. But that's just kind of highlighting. You have such unique looks that it's so early, things like that are going to happen. But conversely, that also highlights Dylan Gabriel and his command of the offense. Because if you go back and watch that play, he looked and saw Mims had nobody on him, meaning there was one of two possibilities. Mims has a safety on him or Mims has a linebacker on him. Yeah. If Mims has the safety on him, there was a route to the right side that he had. If Mims has the linebacker on him, it's Mims all day. The second Dylan Gabriel saw that linebacker, boom, right over top textbook. That's command.
Now, not only would I say that, because there were some detractors, and again, there was definitely some things I was like, yeah, they got to get better at that and get better at it.
But that's natural. That's so soon.
The defense, that's not to say that the defense didn't have a better day than the offense. To be honest with you, they did.
That's not my contention when I say that. I'm not saying that to point out like, oh, there's any work. I thought y'all's defense looked really, really solid. My point in saying that was just that this is a complex system. This is not your grandma's defense anymore. This has got moving parts. Yeah. It's the biggest reason why if you watch Alabama games, a lot of the times someone will score on Bama and you're looking and you're like, there's no DB. Within 15 yards, how is he that wide open? Yeah. Because when you have systems this complex, more than likely if you get scored on, it's probably a bust. Because it's just there's so many moving parts. But I'd much rather have it that way. Personally, me, much rather have it that way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was.
No, you good, JP. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the offense, like you said, didn't necessarily have as good of a day. I also don't think that we saw the offense firing at its full capacity.
No.
They weren't going as fast as they said they were going to go, which is, I mean, it's a spring game. You don't expect that. And again, from everything we've been hearing in practices, and again, kind of like Nino said earlier with Texas, it is practice. But at the same time, the tempo that they're going to use is going to create some of those mismatches, a la linebacker on them, etc. And to your point, Chris, we saw Stetson Bennett take Georgia to a national championship this year. And again, I know Georgia's stacked, right? I know Georgia's stacked. I get that. But I think this notion that you need a over-the-top quarterback all the time has been proven wrong by that. Like, if you have a guy that's in the spot that's able to do what he needs to do and do it well, and you have the other parts around him, you can be successful. Now, I'm not saying Oklahoma's going to go and win a national championship. I'm not going to say that this year with Dylan Gabriel. But I do think, as Chris said, if you look at the two quarterbacks that were in the Big 12 championship game last year, I don't think they're anywhere as good as Dylan Gabriel at all. And so to be able to say that this team's ceiling is a Big 12 championship and a playoff bid, I don't think is crazy. I think a lot of people think that because of what they've seen from the outside and what they think they know, which I know we lost a ton. But again, when you look at everything that happened last year, with just a lot of confusion, and obviously a lot of people think Lincoln was coaching with his foot out the door. There's some truth to that. I'm not going to get into it here, but regardless, Caleb, I think, wasn't able to really fully find his potential because of that. And so I don't think Chris saying Dylan's going to be potentially a little bit better as far as statistics go from Caleb last year is that crazy, because he knows the system. He's going to be able to attack the way Lebby wants him to attack. He's already put up prolific numbers in the system before. Doesn't mean Dylan's more talented than Caleb, because that's not true. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it's true. It's not. But he can run the system better, and I'm looking forward to that. And he's a great leader in general. Also, defensively, I mean, like you said, Ty, there's going to be busts at the end of the day, but just to see them playing with more aggressiveness, more physicality, more purpose, I think is what was exciting about what's going on with that defense. And I think the defensive line's got a chance to be better than the defensive line last year. Obviously we had a lot of talent, but they weren't necessarily utilized all the time as we would have liked them to be. So I think looking at it, the defensive line has a chance to be even better than the defensive line we had last year. Hopefully the linebackers take a step up. I was very critical of them last year, but you're getting one of, if not the very best linebacker coach in all college football as your head coach. And again, I know he's not going to be there all the time, but being able to step over there and tweak some things, look at some things is only going to help. And then we'll see what the secondary can do. I think we have some good pieces that we got from the transfer portal, and Kenai Walker, Trey Morrison, etc. We'll see what Key Lawrence can do as well. But again, I'm not up here screaming national championship or anything like crazy like that from the top of the world, or that we're going to blow everybody out in the Big 12. But I do think that we have a good chance to be better than we were last year, even if that just means making the Big 12 championship game and or winning it.
And just to piggyback off of that before Nick goes, now, Nick, I'm just going to go ahead and take a lot of your points away. But what I will say is this right here is that Ty has said it time and time again, and it's one of the reasons why I believe OU is going to have a great year. There couldn't have been a more perfect time for this all to happen.
Facts.
Okay? There couldn't have been a more perfect time for this to happen. With as much turnover as that has happened in key areas, key positions, key coaches in this league, there's been a lot of turnover. Look, I think that what the TCU coach did at SMU, I think it's commendable. I think it's great. But at the same time, let's not sit here and play around like that's going to be the same TCU team that we've seen year in and year out, because we all know that Gary Patterson has fielded some teams that are not that talented, but still cause OU and Texas some major problems from time to time, right? But at the end of the day, what I will say is that we have some we need to hit the portal. I would say quarterback wise, we definitely need to probably hit the portal.
Yep.
I think Nick Evers has a lot of talent, but I think that maybe
not there
the
yet.
learning curve is just not there right now. Ralph Rucker, Ben Harris, guys like that. You're fine. You have good guys there, but I think you can go and add another quarterback to that group. I think that's a place of concern. I think wide receiver wise, you could possibly go and maybe grab another wide receiver out of that portal. You don't have to make a splash with just somebody who's going to be a really healthy and good addition to your wide receiver room. I think as far as I'm concerned, I think offensively, maybe you can flirt with the idea of bringing in another O lineman. I think we're solid where we're at, but it won't hurt to add depth to that place. Defensively, I'm not really sure what you do because Grinch left a lot of talent on that team, and he left some guys that I would say you could maybe say underdeveloped, or you could just say kind of they're a bit malnourished, if that's a better way to put it, because they didn't get a healthy dose of, I feel, the coaching or the techniques that needed to be taught at those positions, right? So you look at cornerback and you're saying a guy like Woody Washington, but you're looking opposite of him. You say Kanai Walker. Then you're looking at DJ Graham was not out there. He's been hurt and banged up during this camp. You look at guys like that, but then you hear names like Kendall Dennis, and then you're thinking about guys that are coming in like Gentry Williams, who's going to be a stud. I don't necessarily know if he's going to play right off the bat, but at the end of the day, I think that you have some more of your freshman class that's coming in that is going to be really nice for you. But what I would say is that this team still has a long way to go. They have a long way to go. They're far from a finished product. It was great for the moment, to have that moment, to have everybody there and all the rest of that, and just kind of see what they've been talking about for the longest on the tea leaves. But like JP said, this team has a really good chance to be really good in the Big 12 at least.
Before I let Jance go, I want to respond to this. Chris Berry says, don't you think recruits will want to play for the top defensive, and he said defensive coach in the country? And yes, Chris Berry, that's why Nick Saban consistently pulls in the top recruiting class in the nation.
Right on the money with that one, brother. But I look at the spring game, and one of the things I kind of wanted to get to was definitely the offensive line. I wanted to see how you guys kind of improved in that particular area. And I did like what I was able to see, especially from McCade. I saw McCade had a couple of key blocks in there, but I think he's a very solid, really solid offensive line there. Also saw, Chris Murray. I think I like his game a little bit there too. I like his aggression. I think a lot of coaches are definitely high on him, so I think he can be one of the leaders on the offensive line as well. Obviously, Wanya Morris, you're still wanting to see if he can really develop and take that next step to kind of really filling out of that 5-star potential. So I think the offensive line, I think what Chris said, I think it's solid there. But I definitely think it definitely needs to make that next jump, that huge improvement, especially under this offense with Dylan Gabriel, because I think that Dylan Gabriel and Caleb Williams are two kind of completely different quarterbacks, two different styles, different skill sets. So hopefully the offensive line can try to improve in those particular areas. I did like what I saw from your running game. That Javante kid is a running back, man. How he was in goal line situations, man. That kid is tough, and I understand that you guys obviously with with the amount of guys that you have at the running back position, obviously Eric Gray was able to make some plays, had a huge explosive run. Marcus Major, I think Marcus Major is honestly still there too. So, but man, that Javante Barnes kid, man, let me tell you something, man. He was balling, and I think that's definitely a kid that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans should definitely be excited for.
Yeah.
Definitely the defense is a question mark for me, and it's more particularly your front seven. Your secondary, I like the secondary with Woody Washington, with Key Lawrence, Billy Bowman, obviously DJ Graham. You had a couple other players. I think one, I forgot who his name was. That actually, it was like, and Chris, you can probably remind me. There was an interception. There was an interception by Dennis. Oh my God, yeah, that was a hell of a play. How he was able to turn his head around. able to locate the football, able to attack the. I mean, that was impressive. And he wasn't the only person doing that. There was a lot of guys in that secondary. They seemed way more aggressive. They seemed more like they wanted to actually like play. They wanted to be there. And I think that was kind of what was missing. Because in 2020, I saw that, but in 2021, you saw the lack of focus. You just saw that something wasn't right. And then obviously we kind of figured what the kind of issue was by the end of the year. But I want to see with the loss of Benito and Perion Winfrey, who can step up in that front seven and be those big time players, right? Is it a Reggie Grimes? Is it a Jalen Redmond? Is it a Marcus Stripling might be that guy. I think Marcus Stripling had a pretty good game. So I do wonder who you guys who can step up and be that alpha of the defense. I think that's the most important. That's the most important part, I think, of the team so far. And we might not get that right away. It might take us maybe all the way up to the midpoint. I know for us being a Bama fan, when we were kind of in our stench back in 2018 and 2019 about who were going to be the true alphas there, it took us all the way until, it took us a while in order for us to kind of figure out our stable core. So obviously losing a lot, and then obviously with Ellis Grinch leaving, I think could definitely hurt them in that particular area. But there's no question there's plenty of 4-star talent that's there that can definitely step up there and make an impact. I think Marcus Stripling could be that guy. Yeah. But Chris and JP said, I think Oklahoma does have some ways to go. Honestly, I don't know. I have no clue who's going to win the Big 12 this year. I don't know if it's Baylor. I don't know if it's Oklahoma or Texas, or maybe there's like a newcomer that can step up there. Maybe, a team like I don't know. I have no clue who's winning the Big 12 this year, but it should be fun. It should be fun watching, man.
Yeah, Nino, before I let you go, I'm going to run through some comments real fast because we have Sean saying the top defensive coach in the country is Kirby. Look, Kirby's up there, but who taught Kirby? Look, you're talking about the OG of the nickel and dime defenses that we run so much now. That's Sir Nick Saban. He's the orchestrator of a lot of these modern coverages that everybody's running. And then Gray Man says Dave Aranda's the best defensive coach. Hey, Dave Aranda's a hell of a coach, Gray Man. You're not going to find Saban's the best defensive coach. You're not going to find an argument from me on the quality of Dave Aranda, though. That is genuinely one of the better defensive minds in all of football. I can't take that away from you.
Put Sean's comment up there. Sean had a good one.
Which one?
The one about Aranda.
Oh, let me find it.
Get out of here, Chris.
Kirby and Nick just go cry and pay for kids. But here's what I will say, Great Man. Where was Aranda at before Baylor? Because if we want to talk about rule violations, my goodness gracious.
Look, I want you to put the comment up there so you can let the good people know. Put Sean's comment up there. Aranda. Yes, that one right there. Yes. Speak. Facts. Truth. Preach.
How was OU down?
That's the only reason why.
Chris, hold on, man. How was OU down when you had your coach and you had 2 5-star quarterbacks?
Because we weren't down. Our coach, like, he wasn't there. He wasn't actually coaching.
They were the projected number 1 team for a minute.
Hold on, though. We all know college football pretty well. The best run teams are teams that are run by the players, right?
Nick,
Chris.
You can't speak. Chris. You can't speak if your team is listen games last year.
Listen, Chris. Okay, Chris. Chris. I'm a Texas grad. Who you give credit for that championship, Vince Young or Mac Brown? Who do you think the players followed? Come on now, Chris.
It definitely wasn't Mac Brown. We know it wasn't Mac Brown. That's not the point.
It was Vince.
So that's not the point. That happened. That happened 40 years ago. Celebrating the championship 40 years ago. Just like
Mac Brown could have went to sleep that whole season, and Vince would have walked down there for him.
Let's talk about now. Let's talk about Sark going 5-7 last year. Stop messing with family business. Stop messing with family business.
Let's talk about you.
You saw that team last year. I fought you on this, and then I finally told you. I said, man, I don't know. We were not good last year. We were not.
That ain't what you said. No. You said Spencer for Heisman. You were part of you were the Spencer Rattler president the whole season. You said he was Patrick Mahomes.
I said he's a raw Patrick Mahomes.
That's what you said.
First off, you already know tomorrow I'm gonna be on your head tomorrow.
If
y'all don't know, we with Fanatic Perspective, Nino's Corner, and the Horns Down podcast. We linking up tomorrow for that Red River shootout. And let me tell you something. I'll bring you both of my
Spencer was yours. Patrick Mahomes. You even said it at your own mouth that it ain't like we're gonna like get Dylan Gabriel or somebody. That was at your own mouth. You said that. That was Chris. That was Chris with a K, folks. That wasn't Nino's Corner. That was Fanatic Perspective.
Times have changed. I have regressed. I've retraced my steps. I'm fine with where I'm at now. My feet are looking good. Y'all are trying to win 9 games this year.
My feet are looking good too. I'm good.
Yeah, not with Kevin Banks playing your left tackle. Yeah.
You guys had a turnstile at offensive line last year, and you talking about offensive line is a strength this year.
Mm-hmm. Our offensive line was way better. If y'all would have had our offensive line, y'all probably would have. Casey would have never got hurt. I'm not saying that your offensive line wasn't better than Texas offensive line, but your offensive line last year was a turnstile, Chris. You know it. What was y'all's?
A turnstile. I never denied that.
No, that wasn't turnstile. That
Chris,
was
I never denied that. Ty, have I ever denied?
Bro, y'all's offensive line was curbside pickup from Dairy Queen. I don't even know if that's a real thing, bro. It was non-existent.
Chris, let me tell you something.
Foul,
Chris, we all know. Even Ty can attest to this.
Man, you are a fool, man.
Hey, listen for a minute. Even Ty can attest to this. Bama's offensive line was not good this year, right, Ty? At all.
No, we had the fourth.
Hold on. Let me talk for a minute. The thing that makes an offensive line that is not great look good is generational quarterback play. And that's what Alabama had this year with a guy like Bryce Young. A great quarterback can mask a whole lot of things on that offensive line. Caleb Williams, you can say what you want to, Chris, and I know you guys are saying Dylan Gabriel this and Dylan Gabriel that now, but that ain't what you were saying when Caleb was about to leave. Caleb Williams masked a lot because of his ability to not only pass the ball, but the threat with his legs. So having a guy like that is hard to stop. Even the great Nick Saban says the hardest thing to stop in an offense is a dual threat quarterback who can just do it. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I say I think Hudson Card should be the starter because I feel like he's going to mask some of those things.
Chris, it's a difference between being functional as a running quarterback and it's a difference between when I say happy feet, that means I don't look comfortable. That's happy feet. There's a difference between functional mobility and being uncomfortable when the pocket breaks down.
Hudson Card looked good during the spring game.
He didn't look bad. He didn't look bad at all. Spring game. He didn't look bad at all. But when you got weapons,
Texas fans' perspective on the Oklahoma spring game.
Oh man, guys, I'm gonna keep it 100. I like Billy Bowman, man. I think Bowman's gonna be a stud. I mean, it just is what it is. Bowman's a stud, man. Yeah. I do. And people are putting in the comments about about the whole Bijan. Look, he got the dubs. I don't think he gives a damn about being, stiff armed that game. Bowman's a stud. You can say what you want. The dude's a stud. He was committed to Texas. I wish he would have stayed. God, he's a stud. Right? Defense did win the series, which is good because that shows that your defense is ahead of, of the offense, even though Dylan Gabriel is comfortable with the offense. I still have my thoughts on the Lebby offense. It's just my opinion. All right. I think Lebby's a good offensive mind, but when you go back and look, I know you guys are gonna look at me crazy about this. Against Power 5 opponents last year, Lebby scored 31 points or more, I think twice last year. Twice. So for an offense that's that prolific, to only score 31 points or more twice against Power 5 opponents. I'm throwing out the 3 games that Ole Miss had against Central, Arkansas, Missouri State, whatever, right? I'm throwing those out. I'm talking about real competition. Yeah, 31 points twice. It's either 2, maybe 3 times all of last year. So, look, I like Lebby. I think he was good with Lane. was what it was, but I still think there's a lot to be, actually thought of about Lebby. That's just my opinion. Now, I know that he is having this boy back in DG, and it should be a good marriage with him. But if anybody thinks that you would rather have DG or Caleb Williams on your team as a starting quarterback,
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this question: do you not think it's a fair?
I didn't interrupt you. We can throw up the Georgia references, but Georgia's going to have 3 defensive linemen that are going to be drafted in the first round this year. You know what I'm saying? That's a different animal. Yeah. That's a different animal. You know what I'm saying? So, even though Stetson Bennett, whatever his name is, won the championship, there is a generational talent on the other side of the ball too. So yes, one guy did win a championship that wasn't the guy, but in that championship game, you still had a guy that was all world, and he's the reason why Alabama actually went to the championship game. But we're going to see what's going to happen, man. I'm not sold on Lebby. That's just my opinion. To score 31 points or more 2 or 3 times against Power 5 opponents last year, honestly, I don't think it's that good.
Yeah. At least he doesn't run 15 plays from a script that don't work. How does the script help you in crunch time? But anyways,
our script got you down in the game. It was after the script.
It was after the script.
The script worked. It was after the script.
Yeah. The script was always perfect. If this was only like 2-quarter game, y'all would be undefeated. Y'all be in the playoffs every year.
Hey man, hey.
Yeah. 6 games in a row means nothing to you.
What did you say, Ty?
Well, what are your thoughts on the whole spring game? What really stood out to you? I know you talked about some of the defensive pieces, but what's your thoughts on the Lebby offense?
I mean, I thought it looked good. I mean, for the most part, there's some improvements that definitely needs to be made. That definitely needs to be made a little bit there. But like I talked about earlier, man, I was more impressed with the running game, the offensive line, and just kind of seeing the chemistry, how everything was flowed there. And I didn't even talk about Theo Weiss and obviously with Marvin Mims, how they kind of performed. I talked to you guys about this in a little bit while in chat, but Drake Stoops, man, I didn't know he can move like that, man. Listen, Drake Stoops can ball. I didn't know Drake Stoops was about that life, man. I mean, what he can do in the slot, and it's kind of more. It's like a hybrid, kind of more like a Hunter Renfrow type of play style. But man, he can move, he can ball out, man. He can run any route tree you can want him to, and it's actually kind of funny because under this Lebby offense, the most important player, especially in the passing game, has been the slot receiver. I mean, look at Elijah Moore. Look at the following year when they had to rely on Dontario Drummond sometimes to rely on the slot. Back in the UCF days, the greatest Buffalo Bill to ever live, and Gabriel Davis made his money in the slot there. So obviously, with Drake Stoops and what he can provide for this offense, he can have a huge year as far as productivity when it comes to this offense. So I think overall wise, again, some things that still needs to be improved. I thought Dylan Gabriel played okay, but there's reasons why Dylan Gabriel had the success that he had with the Lebby offense back in UCF. But for the most part, I just thought again, you saw some improvements, you saw some things here and there. Just I think it's just a good start.
I would just piggyback off of that and just say, don't forget. Look, I was there. And one of the things that stuck out like a sore thumb to me was the fact that they ran the same play over. And I know that's one of the key concepts of his offense. But they literally ran the same 2 plays all game.
Yeah, it was vanilla. It was very vanilla
really vanilla. So we haven't really been able to see the what this offense really has. But I would say overall, I think I left there saying I was just being a really tough critic. I was like, you know what, C+, B- in some spots they showed flashes of that, but I still say C+, still a work in progress, But you can't be. You have to be. You left that stadium just thinking, man, damn, like they have a chance to be a really, really good team. They have a chance to repeat basically what they did last year at least.
So one of the things that stood out to me, and I said this in my recap, was the command Dylan Gabriel had on the offense. And I already talked about the play, but that it was the last touchdown in the first quarter to Marvin Mims. That just exhibited a comfortableness in the offense and an expectation of what needs to be done and an ability to go execute it. Now, one thing that I do agree with you, Nino, and I can say this because I was a bit more critical of one of the players that I'm about to talk about than Chris was, right? I agree with you. If we're talking about who would you rather have from a ceiling perspective, Caleb or Dylan Gabriel, and this isn't a shot at Dylan Gabriel. I mean, Nino, you know me. I've been as high on DG as any non-OU fan there is. You take Caleb. And that's not a shot at Dylan Gabriel. You take Caleb has got rare upside.
Yes,
like, yes, exactly. I don't know what it is, but when I see it, I know it, right? That's Caleb. But here's what I will say. As far as being developed in the passing game, Caleb had a ways to go last year, right? He was very green, and it's a product of not having played his senior year of high school. It's not something that's surprising. It's not something that's worrisome. But I do think there is something to Dylan Gabriel right now is so developed as a passer that he's going to be able to hit the ground running, whereas Caleb is going to continue learning. But once Caleb hits that ceiling, oh, goodness gracious. I mean, he is going to be just on another level in entirety. Maybe that's this year. I don't know when that's going to be, right? I don't know. It could be this year. Who knows? But the command Dylan Gabriel had of that offense and what he knows Lebby wants to do was what I thought was so intriguing about that. The offensive line, kind of hard to see exactly where y'all are on the offensive line just yet because, like you said, you mix it up with ones, twos, threes. But I did notice that there were bodies, right, that you looked at. Tyler Guyton, I thought, had about as good of a day as he could have possibly had coming over from TCU. Very athletic prospect, played some defensive lineman, has played a lot of the positions on an offensive line. He's someone that if he continues to develop, he's very athletic prospect. But for me, it was the defense is, it's going to be in a good spot. You have all those great defensive coaches, Todd Bates. Ethan Downs absolutely took over the last, I think, 3-4 minutes of that game. I mean, he absolutely took it over. I think the last 3 plays were, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, weren't the last 3 plays Ethan Downs sacks? Just like boom, boom, boom. 2 of the 3 plays, I don't know. But that seems right off the top of my head. So I think it gets to this question right here. All right, and everybody's kind of danced around it, and I'm going to flat out say it. What are the expectations for OU? Well, if you're asking me, I think that a replication of the season we just saw is completely realistic. A 10-win season, I think that's realistic. Once again, I'm not saying college football playoffs because I think there are teams that return so much, right, and they're just in a good position now. But I was very pleasantly surprised with what I saw out of Oklahoma. I thought that, okay, if this team goes out there and does exactly what they did this season, I don't bat an eyelash. Because this gets me into my final point before I'll pass it on. Whenever people are talking about OU is going to fall off, I think that we're asking the wrong question. And I think we get this convoluted. Because the question is, what are the expectations for OU? And I feel like a lot of people are still basing this team's expectations off of the expectations the Oklahoma faithful had a year ago, where it was like, okay, well, this is college football playoff or bust with this team. This is a different team, right? So the expectations must also shift. And I think if they repeat this year, that's very realistic. Now, I don't know how y'all fall on that, but I've been fairly consistent in that line of thinking, and nothing I saw from the spring game really moved me off that mark. Nino, what do you think about that?
Hey, man, first off, I got to address a comment from Ryan Lopez. He said he just looked at Ole Miss 2021, and they scored 31 or more in 7 games against Power 5. Okay, I said 31. I said above 31 points, okay? They scored above 31 points against Louisville, Austin P. I don't count them. Tulane, I don't count them either. Arkansas, they scored 52.
That's an impressive one.
And that's it. They scored 31 or less points every game of that season.
But my question for you though is like, because I understand, I completely understand what you're saying. But considering the league that Ole Miss is in, like SEC West, and that they probably are significantly less talented than many of the defenses that they're going up against. I don't feel like that's unreasonable, in my opinion.
Would you say less talented? I mean,
they had a pretty bad offensive line this past year. Because Jance, didn't Bama get like 6 or 7 sacks on them? I mean, Will Anderson.
Bama.
We had 9 sacks.
9?
Mm-hmm.
9 sacks.
Yep.
Oh.
I just need to butt in here real quick.
Go ahead.
Look, since we talking about stats and stuff like that, on October 30th, 2021, all it took for Baylor to beat Texas was 31 points. They won 31-24. Yeah. 31 is a special number to Nino because he knows all about 31.
Chris, I'm talking about a 5-17. I'm not talking about a team that's supposed to be for a championship. I'm talking about a 5-17.
Nick, I just wanted to point that out.
Hey,
31 points. That's all it took.
Hey, and JP also, that same Lebby offense, right? Since we're talking about the quality of defenses in the SEC West, that same offense only put up 7 points against Baylor last year too. So
yeah.
I mean, Matt Corral got hurt. Matt Corral was out.
I also say this to kind of defend Lebby a little bit too with the Ole Miss offense. They lost Elijah Moore and they also lost Sanders, their tight end last year, and then they lose. Their offensive line was pitiful. They had to rely way more on the running attack. People don't remember this, but Ole Miss had one of the best rushing attacks for 2022 last year, and a big reason why was because of the injuries that they suffered this year. And they lost Drummond, who was by far their best receiver, and you had to rely on lesser talent to try to operate that offense. So I think from a talent perspective, they just weren't really there, and they had to kind of really change the game plan a little bit. Had to rely way more on the running attack, and it worked because they ended up winning 10 games. Now, their defense is not the best of all time, but instead of having that fast tempo that they were used to back what they did in 2020, because remember, back in 2020, they were up there with Alabama for being one of the top offenses in the nation. Remember, they put up close to 50 points on us last year. They put up 48 points. They put up over 600 yards against us, and we couldn't stop it. The only reason why we won that game was because of Lane Kiffin with his game management decisions. I have no idea why he didn't go for it. We couldn't stop him on 4th down the entire night. But they had to go to a more run-style offense, and it ended up working for them by having a more slower pace type of style of football.
Yeah, and as this comment so wisely points out, Will Anderson is indeed.
That too.
Him and Mullen Boy gonna get real acquainted. They're gonna get real acquainted.
Dallas Turner, Jeremiah Alexander. I keep saying it. Jeremiah Alexander, man.
What's the battle kid? Oh, that dude's a beast.
But I will say this though. There is another team in Alabama that wears orange. Yeah, Auburn by 40 this year.
You gotta stop, man.
I'm about 40.
You have to stop with the trolling, man. Chris, you gotta stop with the trolling, man.
Hey, Chris, I don't think you believe half the stuff you say.
I said, yeah.
I'm muted.
This man.
I don't think Chris believes half the stuff he said.
You wanna know what's been killing me? Y'all ever watch Chris Tucker stand-ups?
Yeah.
The way Nino's been saying Chris, that's the way Chris said Michael Jackson used to say his name. Chris. I've been trying not to laugh at that all night. Hey. Chris.
Before we get out of here,
we always talk stuff to each other. Before we
get out of here, let me verbally address that Tebow, that person out there in West. If that's what you call the Mecca, that was trash. That was pure garbage. That was hot garbage.
Tell the truth and show the devil. Go ahead.
Watching that game right there, I left that game thinking, my God, it's literally the same thing. And when he ran, I remember watching the highlights, and the only thing that was running through my mind is, oh my God, he ran that triple reverse again. My God, he won't stop. I'm like, your offensive line is terrible. Your defensive line they look like they have a pulse. They'll be decent. But I was looking at at his DBs, and I was just like, Jesus, I guess Manning's coaching them too. It was terrible. I was like, it's the same play, same formation, same thing everybody else has seen. I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna get out of Oregon. I don't know how you're gonna get out of Utah with that because your team is soft.
You was crying when he left, man.
I
You
was not
got
crying
featured
when
on
he
the Dallas radio station for your rant when he left. I don't want to hear it. They featured you. They said, you hear this OU fan about Lincoln Riley? If I saw him, I would kick him. I would kick him in the mouth. I don't know what you said. You got featured on a primetime radio station for the rant that you got because your boy left the team.
It was
Well, I want to hear that.
105.3 The Fan right here in Dallas. Genuinely one of the largest sports radio stations in the United States.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he was featured on it. Yeah, 100%.
What did you say?
I was a G-bag of the day or something.
Bro, I gotta send it to you. It was off the hinges. I just shut up. I was like, Chris doing the dirty work for me. I'm good. But Chris, I don't know if you've ever been to LA, man, but look, we all know Norman was gonna be full. Y'all got nothing to do up there, man. Go there. You got nothing to do, but go there and go to the meat factory. You know what I'm saying? LA got stuff, man. LA got stuff, man.
Yeah, and Nate fabricated a whole 30,000 fans and all the rest of that. I mean, I was literally just watching it like I know what he's running. I know exactly who Caleb's going to. He's going to be wide open. I already know. I knew the plays. I've seen so much of Lincoln's offense, and I'm like, I know who he's going to.
Yeah.
Rush 3, drop 8.
Well, gentlemen, unless anybody has some questions they want to ask, unless any of y'all have some closing points, it has been a blast this evening. We've got to cover two of the biggest spring games, not only this week, but of the springtime in terms of questions being answered. For Texas, what are they going to look like? For Oklahoma, what's all the turnover? But, man, I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement to go around in college football in general this year, and I just can't wait for the college year to get here. But with that being said, guys, I'll let y'all go down the line, let them know where people can find you, and, yeah.
All right, folks, I'm Nick Battle, a.k.a. Nino's Corner. Nino's Corner everywhere, man. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the whole nine. I even had special guests like Chris with a K and Seth every now and then. I guess I'll start having JP on there, too, if you want to come on, too. You know what I'm saying? That's my dude. So, yeah. Hey, find me, podcast, YouTube, everywhere. Tune in tomorrow because me, Chris, Seth and Steven are gonna go back and forth on this Texas versus OU battle, probably for about 2 hours. So yeah, Chris, I got you tomorrow, player.
Well, I'm still working on Seth, trying to get him on there, but might have to go solo dolo on this one. But either way, I'm the man for that job right there. I'm the Black Walker Texas Ranger, but I'll walk you down. But anyways, you guys can find me at the Horns Down Podcast. All right, with my boy Seth Oliveris. Find us on Twitter. We got crazy content, got some funny stuff. We got some stuff lined up for Texas fans this fall. It's gonna be dropping. It's gonna be dropping like hotcakes. But yeah.
My God.
Jalen. JP, you can find me at Indian Sooner. Excuse me, I can't even talk right now. At Indy_Sooner on Twitter. You can find me at the Indy Sooner on YouTube, or just look up Indy Sooner. Doing the JP and Trav show every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central Time. Have a lot of these guys have been on here before. Definitely got to get Nino on there. Maybe during every rivalry week we can set something up. But Chris has been on there. Todd has been on there. We'll be on there this Wednesday. I'm telling y'all got to come over. It's the biggest guest we've ever had on our show. I'm super stoked, super excited. I'm the only one that know. I'm gonna surprise everybody else. But y'all got to come over. Make sure you know. Hashtag Free Baker. I'm out.
Free Baker.
Oh, my backwards.
I guess that's Odell's fault too.
Yes. We can talk about that another day. I got a whole list of stuff.
Speaking of Baker Mayfield, man, he needs to, man. Listen, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm tight, man. That statue does not look like him, man. That looks more like Tate Martell. They need to redo that statue, man. They need to redo that statue.
Hey,
That boy said, "Take my tail."
it looked better outside. The when they first revealed it, it was terrible. I will say it does look better, like out in Heisman Park. It looked better than it did. It's still not great, but it did look better than that. That first one, I was like,
It's the headband. It's the headband.
Man, even with the headband, man, he like the facial structure. Like it literally looks exactly like Tate Martell. People pull up a picture of Tate Martell and tell me that statue doesn't look like him.
I gotta check that out. Let me second, man.
Have y'all ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
That statue looks just like Dennis Reynolds.
Oh, no, it kind of does. Yeah.
I showed my girlfriend, and she was like, "Why did OU build a statue to Dennis?" And I was just like, "No, that's not Dennis."
No, that's Tate Martell, bro.
That's the facial structure. I'm telling you,
that's Tate Martell.
It is. But now, you guys can find me on Twitter, Jan716. You can also find me on YouTube, Jan Sports. I got a lot more college football previews on the way. I'm doing Texas, Oklahoma, A&M, so definitely stay tuned for those videos. Instagram, Jan Sports. And again, if you guys want to talk sports or do something, just hit me up. And for the most part, I'll be there. I'll be there. So yeah, that's all I got.
All right, y'all. That's it for us. I'm gonna leave it with this comment Glenn said. We'll catch y'all next week. As always, y'all, thanks for tuning in. That's it. See ya.
Deuces.